within the frame of Turkish Republic and European Union. This Izmir event is going to be in the format of Konferans. Mr. Tomislav Brajnovic was the project runner here, and the participants are Ayçe, Duran, Cansu, Pelin, İşbilen, Fatih, Gençkal, Sarp, Keskiner, Serenay, Oğuz, Şebnem, Yüksel ve Ufuk, Şenel. Actually, Fatih Gençkal was supposed to be here, but since he was meditating a lot, he is attending in an omnipresent way. Maybe I should explain what is omnipresence to you, according to Wikipedia. Omnipresence or ubiquity is the property of being present everywhere. The term omnipresence is most often used in a religious context as an attribute of a deity or supreme being, while the term ubiquity is generally used to describe something existing or being everywhere at the same time, constantly encountered, widespread, common. Ubiquitous can also be used as a synonym for words like worldwide, universal, global, pervasive, all over the place. The omnipresence of a supreme being is conceived differently by different religious systems. In monotheistic beliefs like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the divine and the universe are separate, but the divine is present everywhere. In pantheistic beliefs, the divine and the universe are identical. In panentheistic beliefs, the divine interpenetrates the universe, but extends beyond it in time and space, seeming like it is talking about art. Our event is around this following questions. How can we hide from a digital dictatorship? Why do we need interfaces? What is the purpose of art? What is the purpose of talking? Is ethics teachable? What makes art relevant? What is relevancy? Mr. Brajnovic.
Those are the questions, yes, we can try to open in our residency. And of course, first you have the
microphone.
I don't know, it's needed, but do you hear me speaking? Yes, thanks. The microphone would give another sound. But the main concern about coming to Izmir or speaking about art in these, let's say, present times was to try to define the focus where humanity is headed towards to. So my perception, since I got this opportunity to write this concept, my perception was that this digital explosion we are living in, and let's say surveillance capitalism or surveillance system is headed towards a point where humanity is going to be in danger. Actually, I believe humanity is going to be over, because if this digital system penetrates our mind, then there is no more me inside and the real world outside, so there is no more place to hide, no more place for your inner thought, no more place for your prayer or for your critical view towards the system. And if this system manages, so this digital technological space that's now really on the edge of exploding in the sense of quantum computing, so if they manage to directly connect our brains to the cloud, big questions arise. So what happens with art? What happens with my critical view? Is there a place where I can hide? So if everything is exposed, so if everybody, or actually if those who are running the system, those who are writing algorithms, security systems, so if they manage to read all our inner thoughts, does it influence art? So, because we all think that art derives from our critical point, from our critical views, and it's an expression of our inner self. So, if our inner self is read, it means it can be also altered. It can be programmed, it can be reset, it can be influenced by information. Because now we are witnessing, let's say, kind of analytics. So we are being read, but not still not, or not yet directly. We are read through information we are giving to this, let's say, Facebook, social networks, and so everything we do that has a digital trace becomes our file. So if you, let's say, we are all here now, we are with our phones, and we are connected through this digital cloud.
So I should also mention that we have a Facebook page called Dancing Between, and you can send posts and attend to the conference on a universal way.
Yes, this is just a small introduction so you understand actually what was our concern, and this dancing between title and the page that came after is try to express this moving or dancing as a metaphor in between two states, two positions, two spaces. So humanity and transhumanity, freedom or being, let's say, enslaved, relevance, not relevance. So there are many opposite points, true, lie. So there are many opposite points that are kind of contrasted, and as artists we are moving in between. So that was the, let's say, poetic idea how to approach this residence, and everybody, let's say, agreed to act as artists, so to discuss those questions before doing our, let's say, own work. Because if we are in danger of losing humanity, it means that what we're doing as artists is in second, has a second importance. So first, what's going to happen to us as humans, and art kind of it derives from it. So this was the initial position. Not everybody agrees. Other people have some other positions. I may be pessimistic, maybe there is some optimism. So we are kind of moving between optimism and pessimism. Is there a solution? What's art? Is it relevant? How to be relevant? Or should we hide? So all these questions are open, and I kind of invite you to have your word. And even you, if you have some question, maybe you can also intervene in the middle of our discussions. You can ask something and give your contribution, or you can do it in the end, but it's open to discuss.
And also maybe it's an interesting point that we also dance in between virtual and real. And so virtual is, for example, something on a higher level in English, but in Turkish the word sanat is not on that level. Sanat means that which is unreal. So this is also a point of view to this context, I think.
Yes. So we are open to your contribution if there are some. Otherwise, we can go further with this introduction. But
I think we can go further because we have a lot of questions. I don't know if the answer or not, but maybe you can, for example, go one by one on them, and then anybody can take their turn. How can we hide from a digital dictatorship, for example?
Yes, so maybe you can, just say, okay, we make this round trip, so everybody says something. Would you agree with that? No. Okay.
Do you have an answer?
Maybe. Yes, there is because this discussion is quite difficult to manage, because not everybody is aware or is interested in this topic, because things are happening beside what I'm saying. So this is something that is still, let's say, not so much visible, but if you're listening to philosophers and, I don't know, Harari or Zizek or all these guys, there is a certain concern what's going to happen. So now we have this proposal to project a video by this Harari, or it's let's say 20-something minutes. I don't know if all agree, or maybe you can fill the time with this and then we see what's going to happen. The only question is, do we have a sound Can we have sound also from the projector to the speakers, or now it's too late to manage? Or maybe you can put this microphone closer to the projector.
First, before that, I want to give a space to our part. Before the video.
Yes.
how to be so something, and we can do it like this. Where does it come from? Is it coming from here?
This was a talk given recently in Davos. So
just imagine North Korea in 20 years, when everybody has to work. For a decade. It's a pretty good. With us today is Harari. He's a best-selling author of 3 books. The latest is 21 Lessons for 21st Century. He's a historian and a philosopher. He has thought long and hard about 3 existential challenges: nuclear war, ecological collapse, and technological disruption. Also with us is Mark Rutte, also a historian. He's been the Prime Minister of the Netherlands for 10 years. In 2019, the World Economic Forum Competitiveness Report ranked the Netherlands as 4th globally and 1st in Europe. It's a pretty good report card for a nation with some real challenges that are relevant to the topic we're going to be talking about today. As many of you know, about a third of the country is below sea level. The Dutch are famous for their ducks. And they're also famous for the little boy who plugged the leak in one of those dikes until help arrived. There are not enough little boys to just plug the threads that surround us today. But perhaps we can learn something from such devotion to a common good, because this is what it portrayed. To kick things off, Yuval is going to share some of his current thought.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I hope you hear me okay. If not, just make a sign. As we enter the third decade of the 21st century, humanity faces so many issues and questions, and it's really hard to know what to focus on. So I would like to use the next 20 minutes to help us focus of all the different issues we face. Three problems pose existential challenges to our species. These three existential challenges are nuclear war, ecological collapse, and technological disruption. We should focus on them. Now, nuclear war and ecological collapse are already familiar threats. So let me spend some time explaining the less familiar threat posed by technological disruption. In Davos, we hear so much about the enormous promises of technology. And these promises are certainly real, but technology might also disrupt human society and the very meaning of human life in numerous ways, ranging from the creation of a global useless class to the rise of data colonialism and of digital dictatorships. First, we might face upheavals on the social and economic level. Automation will soon eliminate millions upon millions of jobs. And while new jobs will certainly be created, it is unclear whether people will be able to learn the necessary new skills fast enough. Suppose you're a 50-year-old truck driver and you just lost your job to a self-driving vehicle. Now there are new jobs in designing software or in teaching yoga to engineers. But how does a 50-year-old truck driver reinvent himself or herself as a software engineer or as a yoga teacher? And people will have to do it not just once, but again and again throughout their lives, because the automation revolution will not be a single watershed event following which the job market will settle down into some new equilibrium. Rather, it will be a cascade of ever bigger disruptions, because AI is nowhere near its full potential. All jobs will disappear, new jobs will emerge, but then the new jobs will rapidly change and vanish. Whereas in the past, humans have had to struggle against exploitation. In the 21st century, the really big struggle will be against irrelevance. And it's much worse to be irrelevant than to be exploited. Those who fail in the struggle against irrelevance would constitute a new useless class. People who are useless, not from the viewpoint of their friends and family, of course, but useless from the viewpoint of the economic and political system. And this useless class will be separated by an ever-growing gap from the ever more powerful elite. The AI revolution might create unprecedented inequality, not just between classes, but also between countries. In the 19th century, a few countries, like Britain and Japan, industrialized first, and they went on to conquer and exploit most of the world. If we are not careful, the same thing will happen in the 21st century with AI. We are already in the midst of an AI arms race, with China and the USA leading the race, and most countries being left far, far behind. Unless we take action to distribute the benefits and power of AI between all humans, AI will likely create immense wealth in a few high-tech hubs, while other countries will either go bankrupt or will become exploited data colonies. Now, we aren't talking about the science fiction scenario of robots rebelling against humans. We are talking about far more primitive AI, which is nevertheless enough to disrupt the global balance. Just think what will happen to developing economies once it is cheaper to produce textiles or cars in California than in Mexico. And what will happen to politics in your country in 20 years when somebody in San Francisco or in Beijing knows the entire medical and personal history of every politician, every judge, and every journalist in your country, including all their sexual escapades, all their mental weaknesses, and all their corrupt dealings? Will it still be an independent country, or will it become a data colony? When you have enough data, you don't need to send soldiers in order to control a country. Alongside inequality, the other major danger we face is the rise of digital dictatorships that will monitor everyone all the time. This danger can be stated in the form of a simple equation, which I think might be the defining equation of life in the 21st century. B times C times D equals R, which means biological knowledge multiplied by computing power multiplied by data equals the ability to hack humans. R. If you know enough biology and you have enough computing power and data, you can hack my body and my brain and my life, and you can understand me better than I understand myself. You can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. You know more about me than I know about myself. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone. A system that understands us better than we understand ourselves can predict our feelings and decisions, can manipulate our feelings and decisions, and can ultimately make decisions for us. Now, in the past, many tyrants and governments wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. Neither the Gestapo nor the KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack all the people. We humans should get used to the idea that we are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what we are. The power to hack human beings can of course be used for good purposes, like providing much better healthcare. But if this power falls into the hands of a 21st century Stalin, the result will be the worst totalitarian regime in human history, and we already have a number of applicants for the job of 21st century Stalin. Just imagine North Korea in 20 years, when everybody has to wear a biometric bracelet which constantly monitors your blood pressure, your heart rate, your brain activity, 24 hours a day. You listen to a speech on the radio by the great leader, and they know what you actually feel. You can clap your hands and smile, but if you're angry, they know you'll be in the gulag tomorrow morning. And if we allow the emergence of such total surveillance regimes, don't think that the rich and powerful in places like Davos will be safe. Just ask Jeff Bezos. In Stalin's USSR, the state monitored members of the communist elite more than anyone else. The same will be true of or your president to know what you really think about them? So it's in the interest of all humans, including the elites, to prevent the rise of such digital dictatorships. And in the meantime, if you get a suspicious WhatsApp message from some prince, don't open it. Now, even if we indeed prevent the establishment of digital dictatorships, the ability to hack humans might still undermine the very meaning of human freedom. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already happening. Already today, billions of people trust the Facebook algorithm to tell us what is new. The Google algorithm tells us what is true. Netflix tells us what to watch, and the Amazon and Alibaba algorithms tell us what to buy. In the not so distant future, similar algorithms might tell us where to work and whom to marry, and also decide whether to hire us for a job, whether to give us a loan, and whether the central bank should raise the interest rate. And if you ask why you were not given a loan, or why the bank didn't raise the interest rate, the answer will always be the same. Because the computer says no. And since the limited human brain lacks sufficient biological knowledge, computing power, and data, humans will simply not be able to understand the computer's decisions. So even in supposedly free countries, humans are likely to lose control over our own lives and also lose the ability to understand public policy. Already now, how many humans really understand the financial system? Maybe 1%, to be very generous. In a couple of decades, the number of humans capable of understanding the financial system will be exactly 0. Now, we humans are used to thinking about life as a drama of decision-making. What will be the meaning of human life when most decisions are taken by algorithms? We don't even have philosophical models to understand such an existence. The usual bargain between philosophers and politicians is that philosophers have a lot of fanciful ideas, and politicians patiently explain that they lack the means to implement these ideas. Now we are in an opposite situation. We are facing philosophical bankruptcy. The twin revolutions of infotech and biotech are now giving politicians and business people the means to create heaven or hell. But the philosophers are having trouble conceptualizing what the new heaven and the new hell will look like. And that's a very dangerous situation. If we fail to conceptualize the new heaven quickly enough, we might be easily misled by naive utopians. And if we fail to conceptualize the new hell quickly enough, we might find ourselves entrapped there with no way out. Finally, technology might disrupt not just our economy and politics and philosophy, but also our biology. In the coming decades, AI and biotechnology will give us godlike abilities to re-engineer life and even to create completely new life forms. After 4 billion years of organic life shaped by natural selection, we are about to enter a new era of inorganic life shaped by intelligent design. Our intelligent design is going to be the new driving force of the evolution of life. And in using our new divine powers of creation, we might make mistakes on a cosmic scale. In particular, governments, corporations, and armies are likely to use technology to enhance human skills that they need, like intelligence and discipline, while neglecting other human skills like compassion, artistic sensitivity, and spirituality. The result might be a race of humans who are very intelligent and very disciplined, but lack compassion, lack artistic sensitivity, and lack spiritual depth. Of course, this is not a prophecy. These are just possibilities. Technology is never deterministic. In the 20th century, people used industrial technology to build very different kinds of societies. Fascist dictatorships, communist regimes, liberal democracies. The same thing will happen in the 21st century. AI and biotech will certainly transform the world, but we can use them to create very different kinds of societies. And if you're afraid of some of the possibilities I've mentioned, you can still do something about it. But to do something effective, we need global cooperation. All the three existential challenges we face are global problems that demand global solutions. Whenever any leader says something like, "My country first," we should remind that leader that no nation can prevent nuclear war or stop ecological collapse by itself. And no nation can regulate AI and bioengineering by itself. Almost every country will say, "Hey, we don't want to develop killer robots or to genetically engineer human babies. We are the good guys. We can't trust our rivals not to do it, so we must do it first." If we allow such an arms race to develop in fields like AI and bioengineering, it doesn't really matter who wins the arms race. The loser will be humanity. Unfortunately, just when global cooperation is more needed than ever before, some of the most powerful leaders and countries in the world are now deliberately undermining global cooperation. Leaders like the US President tell us that there is an inherent contradiction between nationalism and globalism.
Since we have a lot of Facebook reactions, I wanted to directly relate that.
Just waiting for Serenay.
And because our second, to talk about all of these questions, we need to use time economically. Our second question is, why do we need interfaces? So, why do we need interfaces?
So this was one of the questions we were discussing in this residency. So why do we need screens in order to communicate? So why don't we connect, let's say, physically or body to body, skin to skin, and more directly relying on, let's say, humanity? But that's something, that's of course my opinion, but that's something we had throughout history. And this problem this guy is addressing is something that's kind of going around it. So it's connected to the relevance he's talking about. So what's relevant, what is irrelevant, should art be relevant? So this is a big question, you know, what's relevance?
Yes, I think this is a question from Mr. Ufuk to the world via Facebook. So I need to channel this.
Maybe somebody else can describe maybe this notion of relevance, or you maybe, somebody of you knows how to describe relevance. What would mean to be relevant in this world?
I mean, we were actually trying to translate this text from English to Turkish yesterday. What makes art relevant and what is relevancy? When you open the dictionary, it is translated like ilişkili, ilgili. But this sentence sanatı geçerli kılan nedir? Geçerlilik nedir? We could translate it like this. I mean, it is different than dictionary. So what is relevancy and what is irrelevancy, really? Is it something about relationship or is it something about being valid?
How I understood it. Okay, now we cut this discussion, but to be relevant now, so let's say screen, start from screen, interface. So if you want to be relevant today, to be connected, you must have an interface. Otherwise, you are out of the game. So you can't connect with your friends, you can't connect with your business, you don't know what's happening here. So you want to follow what's going on, be in real time. So those are all notions that derive from this interface. So let's say sometimes I communicate with my son more easily through Messenger than directly, because for him, as a generation born in this millennium, for him it's easier to communicate through the interface, so not having this direct contact with me. So it means that if you don't have interface today, you are irrelevant. So everybody wants to have a smartphone. So in that sense, also understand art. So if you want to communicate to the public, to the world, as Ufuk said, it means you have to use mediums that are relevant today. Otherwise, if you're going to use means of the cave, it's going to be nice for some friends of yours, or for some group that also sleeps in the cave, but it's going to be irrelevant for the world. That's why, let's say, Trump, Angela Merkel, all these guys tweet. So they have an idea, they just tweet a war to, I don't know, Syria, a war to Afghanistan. So, it's crazy how this information is really in real time. And then the question is, me as an artist, where am I? What I'm doing? Am I irrelevant in that sense? So what I'm talking to the world is not seen, it's not listened to. So, of course, the question is, should an artist be listened to? Should he be present with his ideas or not? So what's the purpose of art in the end, Is it the purpose to do your work hidden, let's say in the cave, to be really drastic, or to be present in the public? So if you want to be present in the public, I think that you have to use those interfaces, although it is a barrier between me and my son, so it stands in front of us, it's kind of a border, but it's the only way to discuss, to contact him. So I have to use it.
So you mean interface is relevant?
Yes, if information, let's talk about information, media. Art was always about media, connected to some media. Although I think the media is relevant, but there is a media, so a way to transmit your ideas to the public. It's painting, let's say, so this is interference. This is another problem. So when you're talking about contemporary art, what makes something contemporary? So
well,
when you say,
I
yes.
have a question about this relevance.
Please.
I think art, after let's say, since the modern time, there has been a shift of paradigm about what art is. So art was freed of all its relevancy. So maybe art is the only place or only medium that has the freedom to be relevant. Everything else should be in a way relevant to something. But art has this unique position to have the freedom of being irrelevant.
Artist may be already an interface in itself.
No, when I say if you think about artistry, art has always, with the church, with religion, with the state, with patrons, with mecenes. So it always had some relevancy. And since the modernization, let's say, art had this freedom of being irrelevant.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very good point. But the only problem I have with this is that this freedom is now in danger. So it changes the side, because we never approached this moment where our freedom of thinking, so our modernity, actually is on stake. So that's what we're talking about. You know, what happens? Of course, we are anticipating. So, because if you're waiting that this happens, there will be no possibility to have a conference about that, because it's gonna happen. So now we still have freedom, as I said. So modernity fought for our freedom to speak about this. But I think it's not going to last forever. That art is something that's separated from what's going on, because this guy in one moment says he's optimist. He calls for global solutions, global cooperation, global this and that. But he's a historian, and he knows that.
He's talking about, I'm sorry, it's World Economic Forum.
Yes, Economic Forum is positive. But the problem is that this, I think, is not going to happen. And what he says that those guys who are programming, who are writing algorithms, should also have lessons in ethics. And then he says, ethics is not needed for artists. And then when he says that, I am kind of very touched, because I'm dealing with ethics. So how can I leave my dealing with ethics to some engineer who is programming algorithms who are going to define my future? So in that sense, if I'm leading to this technology, to the system, to the state, to corporations, to shape the environment, and that's what they're doing. So they're shaping my perception, actually, by altering the information, the truth. So you all know that the internet is full of true, false, fake news. You have, let's say, ecological climate change. Yes, no, the Earth is flat or it's round. So all ideas are on the same level. So now we are in a moment. You are in a position to be on your own. You are on your own, and you have to define the truth yourself. So there is no authority that can say you know you have to trust this and that, because everything is false. And that's art cannot be separated from what's going on to the humans, because art is part of humans. You're humans as artists, you know what I mean? So it influences art indirectly or directly.
And in a different type of communication, this was a good example about interface context. You directly ask your question and your answer became instantly. But for example, Mr. Recep Tuna asks that if any of us think that we will become a member of the upcoming useless class.
Somebody else says
does any of you think that she or he will become a member of the upcoming useless class?
Well, according to Tomislav's point of view, as an artist working with a medium, I would become useless, because I made work in a medium. So you're saying medium is already irrelevant. Am I going to become useless? Or am I already useless? What's your take on this word?
But I already feel like useless, but I believe in recycling.
I think to your point of view, I'm already useless. Not agreeing all this kind of things. So I find it boring and yeah, it's already useless.
Ms. İşbilen, how do you feel?
I feel like I've been always useless since the day I was born, but I like to be useless and take space in here.
Mr. Şenel, what do you have inside?
Chocolate.
Do you find it useless or functional? Useful.
It's about one.
Now?
Now,
So use it.
Yeah. Useless.
Useless,
Yeah.
like a jacket.
Yeah.
Mr. Keskiner?
I was never useful.
The question didn't came up. Miss Oğuz, how
I'm
do you
very
feel?
useful now.
How you are super functional with two webcams in front of you and one monitor. Okay, so you have tools and interfaces and you feel
Yes.
useful. So, this is the situation. And we have different also virtual interactions in between with world and useful and useless artists. Can we check it, please? Because
For example?
since we believe in democracy, we have to give
This one?
voice to all. Yes, yes.
But still underline the very nature of your trade. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift from humans to algorithms. And this is already happening. But still underline the very
And next
nature
one.
of your trade. Because as humans will rely on AI to make more and more decisions for us, authority will shift.
Because we have more.
This one?
When you have enough data, you don't have to send soldiers in order to control a country. So the army will be useless. Which is nice, actually. And go on, please. Wow. We have performance. Performance photography.
Yes. Again, what's the
Mr. Şenel. And we must have
check costs.
one more.
Okay. So two costs.
Yes.
So we have
The last question is
Ersözlü.
Ersözlü. And we have one gift from Cansu İşbilen. She is audience here. This is what she has inside. But it's not inside anymore. And Mr. Brajnovic.
The idea was that there are two parallel worlds, you know. There are things happening at the same time, you know, looking at one side and looking at the other. So we have all this crazy news every day, you know, things going on really fast. And then tourism that kind of doesn't feel it, you know. Just taking a selfie, going to Athens as a archaeological site. So how to explain to those guys who say that there is something going on? So it's going to happen in one way or the other. But me as an artist, let's say, I had this feeling to talk about, at least.
So we cannot hide from a digital dictatorship. We need interfaces because they are relevant. What is the purpose of art?
I have a question for Tomislav actually. Like when we're talking about being useless, I'm wondering how is talking about these subjects that are already happening in the world and people are kind of aware of it, but you are putting them in more detail and maybe raising more awareness. But how is that useful? How is that like more useful than an abstract sculpture in any way? Because it doesn't change anything. It's just stating something that people probably already know and choose to ignore. And what you're doing, like what do you think the function of talking about these things as an artist?
Yes, so
Nothing
I
else.
don't agree with this guy when he says that we are useless. So that's the first point. So we have seen somebody else's actually talk that I don't agree with completely, but I'm reading it as a forensic. So what's going on there? There is Trump speaking about something. I don't like Trump, but he's speaking about something. He's the president of the United States. He has a lot of power. So I'm listening what he's talking about. So that's how I see my contact with reality and how I see my position as artist. So the only thing, so he says, I'm not a prophet. This is not a prophecy. I say for myself, I'm a prophet. It's going to be there, it's going to happen, and the only thing I can do is to tell everybody it's going to happen in order to, I don't know, make the last wishes or because now we're getting to the point. I hope there will be a stop because we can't change. I think we can't change. Although things we can, but who's going to stop? How? Who's going to stop this art? Because this technology is arm race. This is not about nuclear weapons. It's about hacking human mind and hacking human body, hacking everything, knowing about us much more we know. So in that sense, I don't feel useless because I understand what they're doing and saying, look guys, I know what they're doing. You are going to the absolute knowledge. So I'm not hiding behind the illusion anymore. So I'm not, that's why I said the media is not important, because media is more about structure, not kind of loss of sharpness. There is a, texture, all these values we already have experience with the history of art. We know what art is, and what we expect. But this type of understanding came to an end. We have a crisis, I think. We have a crisis in art too. And then the crisis, I think, is connected with this what's going on. Maybe you're not aware of it, so it's not something that everybody understands. People follow, they think we have this problem with robots, but it's not about robots. It's about somebody wanting to know what's in your mind without actually torturing you. But so that's Aldous Huxley. It was written in the 30s, We are kind of complying. We are saying, we are accepting. We are saying, I accept, I agree, just in order to get some software, some quits, some material value. So we are already very far in this accepting because we are forced. So I don't think we are useless. That's why I kind of try to, let's force actually this topic. In the question, what we can do in order to not be useless. And I think it's possible. So it doesn't need to be like activism as a kind of now talking quite loudly. All these artistic interventions can be this voice of usefulness. The only thing is that it's good to be aware of what's going on, because it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be big. It's big, and we are at the start of it. So that's why I say I'm a prophet. I don't escape from this position to be a prophet. Of course, it's a risk. When you say it's going to happen, if it doesn't happen, they're going to say, "Oh, you are a false prophet." And they always tell me I'm kind of not a false prophet. It's somebody who is calling a bad karma, as if I'm the guy who is producing Armageddon. I'm not producing Armageddon. I'm just saying it's coming. Sorry, I'm not the only one. Everybody says, they just say we have to stop it. Global solution, global cooperation. The whole thing is happening on the other. It goes in the other direction. So that's my concern. Where is this
I can see you there also. Exactly the way that you are talking is when you go to a historical site, beautiful site, and you are still reading the newspaper, the news from the world, and still being in this bubble of produced fear by the system, and this produced fear is produced and is played, the system is played through you, the ones who are feared and who doesn't want to change their point of view, which is not maybe, actually, which is not easy, maybe it's the most difficult thing, but you prefer to be in the newspaper rather than changing your point of view, like really literally I'm talking, towards a beautiful site-specific place, ancient place. So that's why this system of fear and producing fear continues and continues and continues and gets bigger. That's what I think, and it's really very nice because we have been talking about this a lot, and it's now seen for me.
No, you're right. Thank you for this. But if I can now reply to you. So this Ephesus, it's not a beautiful, or only a beautiful site. It's Ephesus from the Bible, let's say, one of the churches. And I will read, let's say, the text why I wanted to go to Ephesus. So it says, the armor of God, it says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So, when I was preparing for Turkey, I was thinking about this Ephesus. Why I'm going there? What's important for me? So it's not about nice buildings, the tunnel to get to the course, or church. It's about historical text that is predicting this situation where there's no more question about body clash with the system. It's happening still, but the system is kind of going around the body and is attacking the mind. So that's why I said it's not a fight against body, it's a fight against those spiritual forces that are literally now in the cloud. You don't see it, but we're all connected now. Look at all these interfaces, we're all connected. So it's happening. Informations are going, we have our files, digital files, somewhere, Silicon Valley, I don't know, China, whatever, like a Huawei mobile phone. Now we're getting 5G, So this is happening. So my fight, I agree that this is my personal view. So, and I came here to Izmir because I was invited by Ashu, which I would like to thank, to say, to make this prophecy. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But if I'm not, I think it's worth thinking. So that's why I did it in Ephesus. Just to stand all this history, this now moment, and me kind of not believing these papers because somebody told me this is a state paper, so it's not relevant. So there is something forensic also in I can learn something from it. So that's the answer why standing in front of this, let's say, beautiful site. So there's more to it.
We can say that purpose of art.
What you choose to do there.
Purpose of art and purpose of talking is proofs. We have another question from Gençkal.
I found very funny and very interesting what you did at the start. Like, instead of speaking yourself about the things you talked about, which were your ideas or not, maybe something controversy, you showed us a video from a conference. So instead of you talking, you showed us someone else talking. So you use also another kind of interface. And now while I'm staying and sitting here and talking about the concept or about some ideas for this meeting, so I will also choose my phone to talk instead of me, and I want to show some short video so that we'll do the talking instead of me, and you have to look at it from my phone instead of posting it to the Facebook. So you have to, I think, bear with that because that's the interface.
Gençkal yeriniz hazır.
Peki.
So this was some short clip I wanted to share with you in order to maybe be able to discuss how science fiction and also literature is always trying to reflect these kind of dangers we are facing right now. But because it's art and science fiction and literature, it's always using these concepts of artificial intelligence threats or other technological advances which we are building around ourselves may look like a danger. Science fiction or other styles of arts are using them only as a form of communication. So these interfaces, what these artistic, or because cinema is also a form of art, artistic productions are doing is using only these futuristic or technological advances only to tell a story, which is not actually pointing out to the threats. And these stories are always ending with most of the time, with the hope for the humanity, and also with the hope of the change, and with the hope of the failure of the artificial intelligence, and etc. And this particular clip was also showing at this exact moment where these artificial intelligence called HAL were uprising openly to the human race, where it considers the humans as irrelevant in terms of the bigger mission, bigger picture. But the thing is, HAL is a reflection of humankind, which is also a product of the humankind. So what I want to discuss or ask to you, all of you actually, is, isn't all the systems these technological advances and the artificial intelligence as well, our product, our reflection, part of us, and actually in core, us, is now different than us, what we are doing. So as we talk about these problems or threats which we may face in the near future, we are also thinking about them as a other concept. We are talking about the system that will oppress us, the things that will be done to us by others. So we are talking about it all the time, about the concept of alienation, with the concept of other, which is actually not, because we are doing it to ourselves, and we are doing it also freely and willingly. We are giving the data to Facebook, for instance, and what we are looking now, this interface, is very, very familiar to all of us, and very comforting as well, because we all have an open tab in our computers and Facebook, which we look at them all the time. So this is a concept of reflection, I think, because what we are afraid of is also us. So I'm asking to myself if we should really fear that, or should we embrace the fact that actually we are doing it, and what we are doing is also us. It's no different than others.
This is nature.
This is nature indeed. This has been done since many, many years, thousands of years as well. This is nothing new.
And hot particles.
Maybe if you say so. So it will come to a complete transcendence moment where we all bind consciousness. So I cannot look at these things, imagine in the past that we had a space. Maybe we did not, because today we are living in a much more open perspective, and we know that we have our spaces which are being taken from us. But in the past, maybe we didn't have that perspective, and we didn't have that place to hide again as well.
No, I agree. This is a very good point, because when you're talking about religions, let's say I have this notion of formative context and emotional blackmail.
Yes.
So that's how the religion was functioning.
Sure.
So you are, as a child, they baptized you, or they put you in some communistic party. We did it in Yugoslavia. In 7 years we were already member of the party. So they did it. And it's very difficult to get rid of it. I had this, let's say, not opportunity, but I had a crazy, still have a crazy father who was always fighting against the system. So he helped me actually, not completely, but partly
To get out of
this formative call. But it's very strong because it's everywhere. It's about New Year, it's about Christmas, it's about Valentine's Day. All these feasts, every day has a saint, so it's everything's contaminated with emotions. So, and then the nation and the religion went together. So it's deep down. You have it also in Turkey, you have it in Croatia. It's about flags, it's about symbols, it's about monuments, it's about, it's a huge. So that's the first level of, now even worse things happen. That's my point, unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
And we agree to it, so we are not even seeing it as a threat anymore, because we are into it. It's nice.
Yeah, we embrace it. All
yes.
the people are embracing.
So the only question is what we are losing. So what is going to be the price? The final price of this technological, genetical, or biogenetical, or biotechnological explosion. And it's happening. We are on the edge of this quantum computer. It's not still operative, but I think you follow also what's going on.
Yeah.
So it's million times faster than the conventional. So it's breaking of all codes. You can't play with it. No chess, no StarCraft, nothing. It's better.
Mm-hmm.
It's So this is And then I'm an artist. Okay, what I'm doing. How long should I wait until I present my idea? How to get to the public? Where is the public? Is there such a thing as a public? Somebody who is just watching. And these questions. So this is what's all about. And please help me with some wise words.
So the purpose of art is relevancy.
Video all again.
So we don't.
No, right after that. Could we just watch the, not watch, but please put the Ephesus video on the screen.
Which one?
The newspaper video.
Newspaper video.
Not now,
Later. Oh,
because it's on.
And if we have another post on Facebook page, I mean, on behalf of democracy, can you please pay attention?
just leave this one in. This was our cartoon.
Yes.
Today or?
No, from 2013.
Okay.
Okay, I'll come back. I'm going to start
I'll be back.
Yeah, I just posted this when Emre, he was talking about basically all AI is us because we build them and we put our sensibility, privacy, ethics, everything in them. And this is work actually I've done about that like 6 years ago because I was like looking at those semi-automatic sensory gadgets like hand towel dispenser, and I realized that it has a 5-second sensor, so it wouldn't let you get as many paper towels as you want. It would stop you because it's made by a human and it kind of has the consciousness of the fact that humans are greedy. So it only knows like one thing, and that's the greed of humanity. So it's kind of like a semi-intelligent device, which kind of becomes ourselves as well because we made it for the use of humans. That's what I understood.
Thank you. So we have an explosion on the page.
There was a question about animals, right?
Are the hackable animals posted by Ayçe Duran and who to marry something? Oh, I couldn't read it.
They're just questions from the Davos.
Can algorithms tell us who to marry?
Bunu kaçırmışız.
And Şenel.
There is an older post from.
Oh yeah.
Let's play.
Screen again.
Ufuk is hiding from us.
Alright.
Is there more of them?
Ephesus.
Newspaper.
Ah, yes.
Newspaper. And there are some more posts actually. One more from Receptuna and one from Şebnem Yüksel.
Yeah, this is George Carlin. I don't know if you have ever seen him. He's talking about the arrogancy of saying.
Like this around you. Country's full of them now. People.
Sure.
Walking around all day long, every minute of the day, worried about everything. Worried about the air, worried about the water, worried about the soil. Worried about insecticides, pesticides, food additives, carcinogens. Worried about radon gas, worried about asbestos. Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant, meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's going to save something now. Save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We don't learn how to care for one another. We're going to save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. Tired. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Do you ever think about the arithmetic? The planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat, that somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just floating around the sun. The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drifts, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace either. Thank God for that. Maybe a little styrofoam. Maybe. Little styrofoam. The planet will be here, we'll be long gone. Just another failed mutation. Just another closed-end biological mistake. An evolutionary cul-de-sac. The planet will shake us off like a mad case of fleas. A surface nuisance. You want to know how the planet's doing? Ask those people at Pompeii who were frozen into position. From volcanic ash.
Question from Mr. Recep Tuna.
No, it's not a question.
It's not a question. What is it? So there was a post from. This is a photo.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So maybe we can go over these questions. I think the only thing we didn't mention about is ethics teachable. What do you think about ethics? Is it teachable? That's very ethical. So, Calvin Klein. So, if you don't answer this question, I will play a song for you. Is ethics teachable?
song, yes.
It's teachable.
To an extent.
But
I think it's not teachable, it's sensible.
Yeah, but whereby it's selfish, so it's to a point that you become the subject.
ethics.
Yes. This is my last action for this conference. Thanks for coming. Have a nice evening.